So in the previous sessions, YMCA leaders, board members, and partners enjoyed the opportunity to learn from National League of Cities CEO Clarence Anthony and Y of the USA CEO Kevin Washington to consider the importance of relationships between nonprofit organizations and public entities. And the Y of San Diego County is very excited to join in this conversation and highlight our engagement with the County of San Diego and Supervisor Nathan Fletcher, Chair of our County Board of Supervisors. Supervisor, thank you so much for joining us today and for all of your collaboration, especially over the last year.
Thank you.
Many of our community. Sorry.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Great to have you. So many of our community members know the Y through their own Y experiences, whether they learn to swim at a branch, send their kids to camp, or participated in something like youth in government, like I did, or utilize the Y to meet their childcare needs. So we know you also have a Y story. So if you could tell us a little bit about your Y story.
Well, the Y played a significant role growing up in a working class family as a place where we had access to be able to go and swim. You know, I didn't live in a neighborhood where we had pools in our backyards. And so to have that access and then to now be in a position to watch my kids and our kids and our family enjoy it. You know, we spend a lot of time of our life at the Copley Price YMCA in our neighborhood in City Heights. But it's not just that. Our boys in particular have utilized the summer camp programs for so many years now as a vital component of their ongoing education and active engagement in what they do. We've participated in flag football leagues, and you know the Y to me is about so much more than just fitness or athletics or camps. It really is a community, and it is that place where we come together with a good spirit and a good intention and really good nurturing environment and healthy environment. And I think it's something that really helps hold our community together.
Thank you. It sounds like you really are part of our Y family. It's the social connections that the Y builds are just, to me, one of the greatest assets that we bring to our community. So I'm happy that we can help support your family in that way as well. So in San Diego, we have a very unique privilege to work with the community by providing many social services. Much of these critical services are publicly funded, where we work with county departments, including child welfare, behavioral health, integrated services, and our First Five. And one of the reasons early on in the pandemic that we began working closer with your team was around increasing access to affordable quality childcare, which we know is really a huge need and has been greatly highlighted during the pandemic. So what sparked the urgency to address this issue for you? And tell us a little bit more about how the county addressed this critical childcare crisis through the CARES funding that our county received.
Well, I'll never forget in the early days of the pandemic, we were dealing with so many issues, all moving in real time, unprecedented situation. But we had a vital problem in that we had essential workers who had to go to work, and we had taken the historic action of closing schools. And so I immediately reached out to the Y and said, hey, I need your childcare services up and running for essential workers. And what do you need? What can I give you to help you in this time of uncertainty? Because I said, we depend on you and our community depends on you. And we're not going to be able to have our essential economic components function if we can't get this back up and running. And I got to tell you, the Y was wonderful. They said, hey, we get it. We're going to be adaptable. We provided some funding to help with the uncertainty and PPE and a variety of things, but we really worked collaboratively to get that vital childcare component back up and running. And I think as we come out of the pandemic now, the question is, how do we make sure that quality, affordable childcare is available for everyone and for all? And I think it's been one of the public policy real shortcomings of the last few decades that we have not viewed the critical essential nature of early childhood education and quality affordable childcare as the same level of importance as other issues that have seen significant investment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, we know the science behind the critical, formative years of brain development in the early years, and now we see that childcare really is part of our community infrastructure, right? And what would we do if we had a day without childcare? We kind of have experienced that under COVID, and so I'm saddened that this is how it happened, but yet I think it's an opportunity, right, for us to really think about how we move forward. Yeah. One of the, I think, innovative things that came out of this was this collaboration across private, community-based organizations, nonprofits like ourselves, the county, and the San Diego Foundation. I think we found a real synergy and had some great opportunities to get dollars out the door to support families through this partnership. So would you talk a little bit about kind of what that looked like and how we can continue to leverage that in this kind of COVID recovery phase?
Well, throughout COVID, a lot of the division got a lot of the focus, people arguing about wearing the mask or not wearing the mask or whatever. But ultimately, a community came together to respond to the crisis. And that is that collaborative framework that is so vital for how we tackle it. And so it was the county saying, okay, look, we can step up with millions of dollars. The San Diego Foundation saying, hey, philanthropy wants to join in and contribute as well. And then we have a wonderful provider like the Y. And so finding those public-private partnerships, but with good, responsible providers who are going to do it right, with government stepping up, philanthropy, private sector stepping up in partnership with a great provider, I think is a testament to what I've seen a lot of throughout COVID, which is people saying, look, we're gonna roll up our sleeve, we're gonna sit down, we're gonna figure out how do we meet the need, and we're all gonna work towards getting it done. And it hasn't gotten as much of the attention as the conflict, but the collaboration has been much more impactful, and I think represents the true spirit of our community coming together to deal with this historic crisis in a way that we can all be very proud of for a very long time.
I absolutely agree. I was just going to say this morning, we were reflecting on a year and the deep relationships we've been able to build over this last year with community partners that do similar and different work with no kind of self-serving interest behind it, right? It's really been about the community. And so I think that's been another nice outcome that we've seen. So, under your leadership, the county has made a very strong commitment to combating racism and addressing inequities in our county. And this really has played a role in our community's COVID response. We've seen our county working very hard to ensure that our hardest hit communities have access to testing and vaccines. And we at the Y are very excited to play a part in this, a small part by hosting vaccination sites. Can you tell us more about the county's commitment to combating racism and how community-based organizations play a role in this and our equitable COVID response?
Well, we've never, as a country, we've never seriously addressed the original sin at the founding of our country. The reality is our country was literally built on the backs of slaves. And that legacy of slavery continues to this day. And you can see the inequities in economic injustice. You can see it in environmental injustice. You can see it in so many of the parts of our society. And the reality is, if we're going to honor the spirit of being on a path to a more perfect union and honor the basic principle of American life, which is equality of access to the American dream, then we have to substantively confront these issues that are prevalent today surrounding racism. And our county is committed. We declared racism a public health crisis, which is a performative statement, but we backed it up with substantive requirements that we start measuring the impact of our programs with an eye towards racial equity. And that is going to be present throughout all aspects of this enterprise and everything that we do. Again, whether you're talking about the economic, the environmental, the criminal justice, the social service, and all of those. And that is trying to get to the root cause of these inequities to ensure not that there's an equality of outcome, but that there is an equality of access. And so we are working hard to do that, whether it's how we prioritize vaccine distribution by zip code, or going to the communities that are hardest to reach, or targeted efforts to folks that may be hesitant with trusted messengers and to connect them, all the way into how we view all of the other types of things we do. It has to be a holistic effort, and it has to be more than performative. It must be substantive.
Right, absolutely. And how do we as community-based organizations, as nonprofits, as the Y, step up to support that effort in our counties throughout the country? What is it that what advice can you give to us to support this kind of push for equity, this COVID recovery, and building these non-traditional ways of working together to really address deep community needs?
Well, I think one of the first things is we just need to acknowledge it's real. And then we need to pledge ourselves to the difficult work to address it. And one of the challenges when you talk about equity versus equality is really understanding the difference. And if for hundreds of years, certain communities have always gotten to the front of the line, then addressing it in an equitable way means that some folks are going to get resources they haven't historically got, and they're going to get more of them. because when you have an imbalance, if you equally invest, you just perpetuate that imbalance. The essence of equity means leveling the playing field, which means that there will be an over abundance of resources dedicated to areas that have historically been left behind. And that creates some friction and that creates some tension. But we need to lean into that tension. And we need to explain why it is morally right and why it is just and why it must happen. And I think that's not just government doing it again, that is our partners. And that is each and every one of us that are a part of this society. Each and every one of us have a role to play in fulfilling that promise that all are created equal. And in order to do that, it's going to require, again, great effort. And, you know, it sounds non-controversial, but sometimes the actual steps you take to address equity become controversial. We faced that in vaccines. People said, well, why are they reserved for certain zip codes ahead of us? Well, because you've lived your entire life at the head of the line. And your community hasn't been as impacted by COVID, and you have access to traditional forms of healthcare, and you have a lot of other advantages. And so we have to be willing to confront those difficulties and those challenges direct.
Absolutely. And I mean, I would say, you know, as a community-based organization, we have been doing kind of that deep reflective work as well to think about how are we ensuring we're making these decisions with our equity lens, and how are we continuing to bring it to the forefront. And so I think that's a way that we as community-based organizations can continue pushing this effort, is to really think about the decisions we're making, the outcomes that they are going to influence, and you know, how we can see things in a new way potentially.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So lastly, we may have some Ys on this call that don't have as strong a relationships with their counties as we're so fortunate to have here in San Diego County. What would be your advice to them to deepen these relationships and start that engaging kind of relationship?
You need to elect people who are members of the Y. You need to. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Love it.
Look, I mean, it helps. Look, it helps. My experience at the Y is shaped on my own life experience. Dropping off kids, picking up kids, playing with kids, going myself. You know, I mean, it's just a part of our family in terms of what we do. But I think every Y needs to reach out and really share the stories of what you do, the impact you can have, and the partnership that is available. I know as chair of the First Five, we've heard incredible stories about things that Y is doing to look at this issue holistically. And how we can all support that. And I think recognizing that at the end of the day, we're all in this together. And government is a reflection of the community. You know, the county of San Diego does not have any money. It is the people's money that we are stewards of. And so the question is, how do we all, each and every one of us, looking out for one another, recognize the ability to come together and address some of these very difficult problems and challenges. And we do that best when we do it together. There's an old proverb: if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And that is what our partnership with the Y has been about.
Wonderful. Thank you. Well, again, we really appreciate your time, and we look forward to seeing you at the Copley Price YMCA and seeing your kids this summer at camp.
All right. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thanks so much.
Bye.
Bye.